if the power goes out, they're going to die. If they get dust or particulate in the air, they're going to die.
Bryan Stern, thank you so much for joining me today. For our audience members at home, just a heads up, Bryan is actually in the middle of an evacuation effort as we speak, as we are doing this interview. Bryan, I want to start there. Can you tell us what you're currently doing and if you're able to share what the situation on the ground is like and where you're located?
So we are southwest of Kiev right now. We've been on the road for a few hours. I can't get into too much of the details beyond we're rescuing a couple of babies who are in duress with an American nexus and a British nexus. Due to the privacy of the families, I really can't get into that much further. But we have three babies, and then a couple of carloads of just regular kids. But our three big babies, or little babies as they were, are in medical duress. Two of them were in one hospital, one was in another hospital, and they're in such duress that the situation on the ground in Kiev necessitates moving them. If the power goes out, they're going to die. If they get dust or particulate in the air, they're going to die, like that. So they're actually doing okay medically speaking, but they just need a little bit more time to get fat and healthy. And the families fear that the clock has run out. So we, at the request of the families, they asked us to help. So Dynamo kind of facilitated and coordinated a baby rescue. We've done dogs, cats, people, children, infants, but we've never done premature babies before. So this is a first for us.
That is so heartbreaking to hear. I'm so glad that they are able to, get help from you and others. Part of Project Dynamo, you talked about sort of the different types of people, even animals that you've been able to help. How many people to date, we're 12 days into this war, have you been able to help?
I actually don't know. We did operations yesterday, and I don't have the new stats. Yeah. I think we're at about 120, 130, but I'm not sure right now. I haven't. We did 3 back-to-back operations, so I actually we've been going so fast, trying to do so much. I haven't been able to look at our little Excel spreadsheet to figure it
out. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of the situation on the ground, but also what locals are feeling, what they've been telling you about, this ongoing war, this intensifying war that we've been, witnessing, that you've been on the front lines, seeing?
Yeah, the people are, it's a hard question, right? Because nobody wants war. Nobody. I'm one of those, I spent most of my career, most of my adult life in and out of war zones. And I'll tell you that in war, nobody ever wins. And the people that pay the highest price are the civilians in the middle of it. The politicians do their thing, and wars happen, and that's unfortunate. But the people that pay the highest price are the civilians. So the civilian population of any war, Ukraine or otherwise, don't want war. They don't want. Nobody wakes up and says, "I hope my country gets invaded." Nobody wakes up and says, "I hope to become a refugee." Nobody wakes up and says, "I hope to have all my personal belongings whittled down to a backpack and a carry-on, maybe to never return home ever again." And that is the situation here in Ukraine. That's a very big reality. We've rescued people out with all their belongings in a shopping bag, and that's it for that's all they have. So. Somebody asked me, a journalist asked me a question recently, do you have any touching stories? Do you have any touching stories about rescues? And the reality is every single one of them are. Mm-hmm. Every single one. Absolutely. They're all, if you are asking Dynamo for help and Dynamo comes to rescue you, you're pretty much having one of the worst days of your life, pretty much. I mean, it's, the stories range from terrible to catastrophic nightmares, and there's not a lot of people are happy when we rescue them, and they're happy to be out of danger. And they say thank you and God bless you and all those wonderful things. The Ukrainian people are proud people who, their culture is nested also in resistance and in resisting oppression and all those things. So they're a warrior people. The Ukrainian Cossacks were like the samurai of Europe. You know what I mean? They would ride on horseback with these big giant sabers. And there's a famous creed that's famous for never being taken by anybody. So, and it's where the Cossacks live. So the Ukrainians, they don't want war, they don't want to fight, but they also don't want to be invaded either, and they also don't want Russia to be here. Nobody wants to go back to the Soviet Union, and the men are prepared to fight and gearing in for a fight. So and for our part, we're not anti-Russia. We're supporting Ukraine, right? But the reality is that one Ukrainian man defending his home is better than 10 Russian soldiers sent here on an errand for Putin. So in a nose-to-nose gunfight, man on man, force on force, I put my money on the Ukrainians any day of the week and twice on Tuesday, right? They have a technological disadvantage and a asset disadvantage, but at the same time, they're definitely the Russians have yet to secure and hold a piece of terrain here. It's been 12 days. Putin said it would take 2 days.
Yeah.
Putin said he was going to take over the entire country and be in Kiev in 48 hours. And here we are 12 days later. And honestly, they've had to regroup because they kind of underestimated the Ukrainians a little bit. So big, big, scary Russia kind of got, punched in the nose a little bit. The Ukrainians are holding their own. They are. And now had to resort to shelling civilian targets, which is an act of desperation.
I'm not sure if through any of these evacuation efforts, if you've come into contact with any Russian military. If so, what has that been like? And can you provide any details if you've had those interactions?
So we go where the Russians aren't. So by design, I don't want to ever be on the same street as Russians, right? We devise our routes and we devise our routes and pick our locations and kind of our tactics are predicated on never being in close contact with the bad guy. We're a rescue organization. I'm not looking for the entire time in Ukraine. I never see a Russian. That's a good thing. They shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here anyway. So I'm happy if I don't ever meet one,
And I also wanted to ask, I know Project Dynamo back in August and it continues to help with evacuations out of Afghanistan. Can you provide just a quick status update into your efforts in Afghanistan?
Yeah, operations in Afghanistan are ongoing, but the Taliban have made it significantly more difficult the last couple of weeks. From the Ukrainian perspective, that's advantageous because it limits our ability to operate in Afghanistan. Therefore, we have more resources to dedicate toward Ukraine. The reality is we're doing both at the same time, but it is very hard in Afghanistan. The Taliban have put in some rules and policies in response to some political issues that have made it very difficult for us to operate in Afghanistan safely and legally. And that is the only way that we do operate. I don't smuggle people. I don't jump the border. I don't sneak people anywhere in the back of a pickup truck. We don't do that. We don't fundamentally, we don't believe in making you, if you're in a bad situation and I smuggle you into a country, I've just now made you an illegal immigrant in a neighboring country that's going from bad to bad. It doesn't really work for us. That's not a great idea. There's a better way to do it, or we provide resources and support on the ground where you are until we can figure out another idea. And that's kind of where we are with Afghanistan. Is landing aircraft in Afghanistan right now is very difficult. Getting people out via land in the neighboring countries is very difficult. Unlike the situation in Ukraine, where the neighboring countries like Romania and Poland, and to some extent the Romanians have done on the border, at the border crossings, is truly, it is touching what the generosity that they've extended to Ukraine and Ukrainians is absolutely the best parts of humanity in a terrible situation, without a doubt. The neighboring countries in Afghanistan haven't felt the same way about their Afghan neighbors. Tajikistan remains closed, Uzbekistan remains closed, Pakistan remains difficult, Iran remains difficult, and that's everybody, right? So
Yeah.
you have China, they're not really kind to the Muslims, to Islam, right? So between China, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Iran and China, Pakistan is the best option, and most Afghans are afraid to go to Pakistan because of the ISI and Taliban connection, frankly. So it's a significantly bigger difference when you compare and contrast our operations from Afghanistan to Ukraine. It's one of the biggest differences. Here in Ukraine, we operate buses, and we're on our way to Poland as we speak. They're letting us in and clearing a path and being extremely generous and gracious to a terrible, terrible situation. That's, a humanitarian crisis analogous to a natural disaster. And the neighboring countries here in Europe are really extending an open heart and an open hand to the Ukrainian neighbors. Much bigger, different, much a stark contrast to what we see in Afghanistan.
Bryan, just before I let you go, as you mentioned, you're on your way to Poland right now in the middle of an evacuation effort. So thank you so much, first and foremost, for joining me during such a crucial time. Do you have any message, or what do you want people back home here in the States to know about what it looks like on the ground there, what people are going through, and how can people help these efforts?
I can tell you we need help. We are donor funded, so projectdynamo.org, please donate. The rescue that we're doing today is extremely expensive. These babies would be in tremendous peril without the generosity of our donors. So it's very simple. You donate money, we save lives. Couldn't be easier. It's very easy. So projectdynamo.org, click the donate button. The other thing for people in America to understand is keep this story alive. We as Americans are, we have short attention spans, and this crisis, it's only 12 days into this war. We need to keep this story on the front pages and keep the heat on our politicians, and make sure that they're supporting our allies. The Ukrainians are fighting absolute tyranny and oppression, and they're defending freedom. That is a direct threat to the United States, a direct threat to NATO, a direct threat to Europe, a direct threat to the world. Vladimir Putin is bombing nuclear power plants, causing environmental catastrophes with impunity. So this is a global issue. This is not a local issue, not even a regional issue. This is a global issue that one way or the other touches every single person on this little blue planet, one way or the other, somehow, some way. So keeping our politicians informed, and honestly pressured to do the right thing, which is what our system of government is all about. That is important. How do we do that? Keep it in the news, keep it in the media, keep writing letters, keep begging for help, keep donating money, keep advocating for weapon sales and all that stuff. The Ukrainians are fighting the Russians with the best weapons that they can get, and they need more of them and better weapons that they need. I'm not advocating for war whatsoever. I'm not suggesting we should arm anybody, but the reality is they are at war. They are at war with a very vicious enemy that seems to be killing people with impunity for fun, to include hospitals with babies in it. So how does that stop? Arm the Ukrainians so that they can defeat this enemy. That's how it works. How can we operate? We need generous donors to donate money so that we can continue to rescue people from this mess.